when venues reach a certain size, you're going to need a dedicated monitor console and engineer to mix the sound for stage. And when we are using two consoles like this, we need to split the inputs from stage so they can hit both of the consoles independently. So we use a splitter. This is an analog connection that simply takes each input and splits it to 2 or 3 outputs, which can then be run to the consoles. Usually the splitter will have a multi-pin connection to make this easy. Then this will fan out to XLR. If we're using an analog snake to front of house, this would require a long run with heavy cabling. But if we're using a digital console with a stage rack, the analog split would only have to connect to that close-by stage rack. And then we would use a digital snake to get the signal to front of house. Now, we'll cover this more later in this section. But analog splitters come in 3 different forms: active, passive, and transformer isolated. Active splits are really the most helpful when you have to run the signal a really long way. And they'll have active electronics, which can include some extra features. This can be a pad, phantom power, or other gain adjustments. And since these can actually affect the signal, I personally don't like using active splitters for live music. There have been times at festivals or clubs when someone accidentally has a pad button pushed and the gain for that channel doesn't come up right. And I feel like it's better to avoid potential variables. But passive splitters don't have that issue. These will simply take the input and wire it directly to 2 outputs. Since this is the simplest way to split a signal, these are usually the cheapest option and work great for most concerts. The one feature you might see on a passive split is a ground lift, but that doesn't take active electronics to do. This just helps eliminate a ground loop, just like on a DI. Now, the one problem with this is that when both consoles are connected to this passive splitter, they actually become connected electronically to each other, as well as the input source. This will slightly change the impedance of the audio signal, which won't affect us too much, but it is a change nonetheless. To avoid this, you can use a transformer isolated splitter. These are passive and are the best way to split audio signals. To avoid the 2 consoles from connecting electronically, the signal will have one direct output, but use a small transformer on the other output. This isolates the signal electronically, but still lets the audio pass unaffected. One thing to note though is that you can't pass phantom power through a transformer. So if we have a direct output and an isolated output, the console connected to the direct output will have to do the phantom power. Usually we do this from monitors, but you could hook it up to either way. Just be aware of which console is hooked up to which side of the split.